plains nor the depths could claim me.
We are now going to do the item guide, chat. Let's start off with runes for our item guide. So our first rune page is going to be First Strike. So we're going to have First Strike, Stopwatch, Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, with secondary being Legend, Alacrity, and Cutdown. This is what I run in most of my games. In Challenger, Grandmaster, Bronze Eel, whatever it is, I love running these runes. This feels the cleanest to me. Now, a lot of you will be saying, why do you run Alacrity? Everything else makes sense. Why Alacrity? And also, why Cutdown? So Gangplank, you don't build a lot of health as Gangplank. In fact, you build pretty much 0 health items as Gangplank, so you're always going to get value from Cutdown, especially in top lane when you're playing against champions like Olaf, like Darius, like Camille. All these champions build items that give them health or are naturally tanky with high base health, so you'll always get value from Cutdown. Secondly, Alacrity allows you to do the triple passive reset combo much faster. Let's say you're in a bush. Right? Let's say you're in a bush and you have a barrel set up there. Instead of just autoing them and queuing the barrel and autoing them again to get 2 passives, as we've done for a very long time, what I have been doing now instead is I place a barrel, right? They walk into the bush, I auto attack them, I place a second barrel, I queue, and as that barrel is blowing up, I get 2 auto attacks as the barrels are blowing up, and I get 3 passive auto attacks. Now, to remind you guys, right? To remind you guys very quickly, also, let me go just to the runes. The passives stack. It doesn't just refresh, it stacks. That being said, that's why it's so important to get as many as you can, and that's the difference between you killing these harder matchups and you just barely dying. So it is very important, in my opinion, to be running this page. However, if you're somebody who says, you know what, I run the attack speed rune, or better yet, you're someone who says, I don't need that, I'm not Solarbacca, I want to run my runes, runes that I would recommend are Treasure Hunter and Taste of Blood. Or, if you're making up for the Navori nerf, because we are on 13.12, I think we are on, you can run Transcendence and Gathering Storm. I also think these are very, very good runes. I don't think Mana Flow is a good rune, and I don't think it's a good habit to take this rune either. I think it teaches you bad habits, so you should never take this on Gangplank. Transcendence and Gathering Storm are both a very, very good combo together. So if you're trying to make up for the Navori nerf, you can do that. Little note here, if you do want to run Magical Footwear on Gangplank, you definitely can into some matchups. I just think Stopwatch is a very broken item, and not many times as Gangplank are you going to go out of your way to build it, especially since it's expensive. It's 750 gold. That being said, you're going to have to build boots regardless, and you're probably sitting on tier 1 boots anyways. So, assuming you make a good play happen with that 750 gold, then it's worth it. It's worth not getting those boots right away for free. But obviously, if you don't end up using Stopwatch at any point in the game, then you might as well have the free boots. But I would say 9 times out of 10, even 9.5 times out of 10, you will find a use for Stopwatch. Therefore, I highly recommend to everyone, doesn't matter if you're new, it doesn't matter if you're pro or whatever it is, I highly recommend you take Stopwatch because you don't have to play so limited and it allows you to play more aggressive. Secondly, Minion Dematerializer. I think Minion Dematerializer is only for mid lane. And I believe it's only for mid lane into matchups where you're against an AP champion, such as Vex or Victor, Syndra, even Ahri could take it into. Pretty much, you're taking it into matchups that want to just shove you in and bully you under turret, which are, again, those control mages that I mentioned. Ryze is another one. I don't think it's good for top lane because top lane wave management is important, whereas mid lane, you don't really feel pressure as much. For example, you could just shove in a wave and you don't feel anything, right? The opponent's not going to freeze on you, and if they freeze, it's easily breakable. And you can do it from a distance. Your turret's close. Mid lane is very, very Mickey Mouse lane in the sense that you're not under much threat. You're kind of just, you have easier matchups mid lane, and you don't have to worry about wave control as much. So I said this before, but like mid lane, you know, mid lane is Mickey Mouse and top lane is for the boys who eat their vegetables, the ladies and gents who eat their vegetables. So I highly recommend those pages. Now, if you're against the Riven, right, or you're against a matchup that likes to all in you, then you're not going to want Taste of Blood or Treasure Hunter, right? If you're against that Ryze, if you're against that Fiora, you're not really going to lean towards bone plating as much. You're probably going to lean towards Taste of Blood because, you know, she's going to Q auto you. You're going to Q back with her. You're going to want something that heavy skirmishes. Poppy's another matchup that comes to mind with the heavy trading. However, if you're against that Riven, that Aurelia, I guess you could take it into Fiora, but it's mostly against those matchups that all in you. Even the Yasuo, you could really take it versus, because unless he's a very good Yasuo player, chances are he's just going to E on you, auto Q you, and you're going to get full use out of your bone plating and overgrowth. You could take Demolish, but I highly highly recommend bone plating and overgrowth overall. It gives you a lot of scaling. It's nice to be tanky, have like almost 3k health around level 18. So I do think it's very powerful. And yeah, those are all the runes that I would recommend for Gangplank in the top lane. There's an argument for maybe Scorch and Absolute Focus, but I don't really think that it exists as much as this does. If you did want to get some heavy trading power, like if you're against that Rise, I like to go back to this matchup because it's volatile, or if you're against the Darius and you say, well, Solarbacca, I don't really want to scale, I don't want Alacrity, I don't want Cut Down, but I also don't want to take Grasp because I want to be aggressive, right? I want to be aggressive, but I also want to have gold generation. Then this is your setup. So this would be the very last setup that we go over. Absolute Focus and Scorch. The next page is the only other viable GP page around all of these. There's also Fleet Footwork, but I heavily believe the Fleet Footwork is not really anything that's impressive unless you're against, again, another champion, Rise. With Rise, you're heavy trading with your Q. I guess you could get the full use of your Q by with Fleet Footwork on Gangplank versus those matchups, like that Rise, that Kennen even. In fact, maybe I should try versus Kennen, but I still would recommend Grasp or First Strike over those runes. Grasp, we go Demolish always, Second Wind pretty much every matchup unless you're into that Riven, into that Aurelia. And then Overgrowth. Revitalize is kind of a bait, honestly, unless you're against an AP heavy team in which you can build a Maw, or if you're going like Tank, Plank, Bruisery. But even if you're going Bruisery, I would still recommend going Overgrowth. But in those scenarios where you are going to be building that Sterex, you are going to be building that Maw, that not Shield Bow, but Sterex and that Maw, I would say you go Revitalize. And then secondary, pretty much always going to be something like Absolute Focus and Scorch. Transcendence and Scorch is also not a bad idea. I don't think you should take Mana Flow. Again, because if you're going Grass, you're probably going to start Corrupting Potion, which we'll get into as well. I would say Transcendence, Scorch, or Absolute Focus and Scorch. The reason why I say this and not Gathering Storm is because when you go Grasp, you have one goal and one goal only. Win lane. There's also one bad thing. You're kind of on a timer in the sense that you need to win lane, right? When you have First Strike, you're scaling. Your rune is always going to scale. You're always going to get gold. You have a nice, healthy inspiration tree with Boot, Stopwatch. But with Grasp, you have to win lane. That being said, I do believe Scorch and Absolute Focus to be the best page with Grasp. Now, there are some matchups that you could probably run Biscuits and Cosmic Insight, or even Futures in Cosmic Insight. Again, Cosmic Insight is the best rune of all these, I would say. Could even take Cosmic and Magical Footwear. Honestly, I think you could take this into some tank matchups that you don't really know what to do. Like if you're against a Cho'Gath, I could see a world where you take like, oh, maybe I want Free Boots, maybe I want Cosmic, but even then, I still heavily advocate for learning how to play Futures Market properly. And yeah, if you were gonna take Inspiration Tree secondary because you're like just learning Gangplank and you don't want to learn First Strike, your runes would probably look a little something like this or a little something like this. And yeah, that's about it for all the runes for Gangplank. Now let's get into some items. I highly recommend all of you who are watching this video to learn how to play Longsword Start. If you guys do want to see a guide on how to play Longsword Start perfectly from level 1, like you watch my videos where you're saying, Solarbacca, I don't know how to play level 1 correctly, just like the video, leave a comment down below saying that you want to see that. That's the only way that I can realistically know that you guys want to see that. Otherwise, I'm not going to make a video on it. I'm just going to keep releasing my content as you guys see it. And it's up for you to interpret what to do from, you know, level 1, level 18, all that sort of stuff. But if you guys do want to know how to do that, make sure you leave a like and comment down below that you want to see the video. It gives you a huge gateway into Essence Reaver around 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. I would say if you're late, you're probably going to get it at 9. But if you're early and on, if you're early or just on par, you'll have it at 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes. Whereas with Corrupting, you're probably always going to have it at 8 minutes, 9 minutes, even 10 minutes. So it kind of puts you behind just a little bit. I would say if you're going to go Grasp, then you go Corrupting. So I'm going to say this is for First Strike, and then this is probably going to be more for Grasp. But if you're somebody who loves Tri-Plank over everything else, I also recommend you learn Longsword Start, because if you're running the setup that I told you earlier with Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight, you can actually get Trinity Force extremely faster, right? Because it's 333, and Trinity Force did just get buffed, which is pretty good. So if you did want to go Trinity Force GP, then you should also learn how to play Longsword Start, because it'll just gateway you to Trinity Force at like 9 minutes. Like, just so insanely quick, so insanely quick. So if you're more of a Grasp Trinity Force enjoyer, I would say that you go either Corrupting Pot and Q Start, or Longsword and Barrel Start, and it'll just give you such a big boost to getting towards that first core item. Next, let me address tier. Tier is not good. I do it for YouTube. I do it for content. Yes, I've done it in Grandmaster. Yes, I've done it in Challenger. Yes, I've done it in Masters. Yes, I've done it in Diamond. Done it in all of those. Why? Because I have fun. Literally, I have fun and it's good content. I'll be honest with you guys. Don't go tier. Not very good. Now, you might be saying, oh, but Solarbacca, I love the mana immune component and I get the 15 haste. While I do agree that that is a very strong strength of building mana immune, I would just give you an alternative of building Hydra. Hydra gives you about the exact same AD as mana immune, and I've tested this in the past as well. Hydra does more damage than mana immune. Because of the way that Cleave interacts with Gangplank barrels, even if you do a practice tool dummy, it'll be inaccurate if you're just using one barrel or one Q, versus if you are chaining that barrel, that second barrel will actually do more damage on the Cleave, giving you more net damage overall, along with wave clear, healing, all that nice stuff. Maybe the wave clear doesn't matter as much, but the healing and the raw damage is just greater in Hydra. I just build tier for fun, so let me just say to all of you who love building tier, it is really not that good. It is really not that good at all. I would highly recommend that if you really want a big damage non-crit item, I would recommend Hydra or Axiom Arc, as we'll get into. The next item we're going to do here is, let's start off with the standard AD Gangplank, because I feel like a lot of you guys don't really know what is going on with AD Gangplank. So let me show you guys first the standard build, and then we'll show you some alternatives. We'll have it in order of important to where things differ, right? So we got that longsword, we got the refillable, we've got the Essence Reaver. Next, I always Navori. There's no reason not to go Navori. Infinity Edge is nice, but you just don't get any CDR, and it just feels really bad. If you wanted to do Infinity Edge with more mana, that's also a possible build, but I'm here to tell you guys what I believe to be the best and alternatives. I don't want to give you guys this hyper niche stuff that doesn't really make sense. I just want to give you guys what I know works, and I don't want you guys to have too many questions, right? That being said, Essence Reaver, Navori, and now Boots. Boots, I know, has been a big conversation in my stream and in my YouTube for a long time, and I give answers here and there, but it's only a few hundred people, a few thousand people who'll catch it at a time, whereas there's tens of thousands of people who are wondering what the hell is going on, right? Here, I'm finally going to give you guys an answer to Boots. It's whatever I feel like. And that's like 50% true. It's whatever I feel like going. It just looks cool, you know what I mean? So if I'm running Alacrity secondary, previously I would always run Swifties. And the reason why I would always run Swifties is because it gives you extra 15 movement speed compared to other completed boots, which can actually be a huge difference in spacing. If you're trying to space a barrel on the opponent, let's say you're playing back and forth, barrel, you're against that range matchup, right? Let's say you're against that range matchup, that Caitlyn in the late game, that Tristana in the late game, every single bit of movement speed, every single advantage matters on Gangplank. I've said this before, especially if you have got my coaching before, but Gangplank is a champion that has a huge domino effect for better or for worse. If you lose, it's because of all the tiny mistakes you made, and if you win, it's because of all the tiny things you did along the way to get your victory. So where am I going with this? That attack speed from Alacrity allows you to time barrels faster because your auto attack animation is significantly faster, right? And it'll allow you to chain further barrels significantly faster as well. Boots of Swiftness allows you to close that gap or to widen that gap however you want it to be, which essentially allows you to get that damage off, because the whole point of Gangplank is just getting that damage off. So if you're able to get that Swifties, you're able to get that Alacrity, those things just feed into each other that allow you to play a smoother Gangplank overall. There'll be some matchups where you're against a bunch of tanks, right? You don't need Swifties because you're against this comp that's just running into you, right? You've got the Darius, a Yasuo, a Diana. You don't need Swifties because if you're caught, you're already dead, right? If Blitzcrank hooks you, Swifties are not going to help. It might help to dodge a little bit beforehand, but ultimately that 15 movement speed is not really going to make a difference. It's just going to be if the Blitzcrank misses or not, right? Into those matchups where the Diana E ults you, Swifties are not going to make a difference. So in those scenarios, I would recommend going Lucidity Boots. It gives you a nice amount of haste, and it gives you cooldown on your summoner spell. You get 12 summoner spell haste as well. Now, when can that be good? Another scenario where that could be good is if you feel bad about the Navori nerfs. Navori did get nerfed. You're not running Transcendence. you decided to run my classic page with alacrity and all that, then that's another scenario where you can run Boots of Lucidity. I don't actually think there's another scenario where you need overkill attack speed on attack speed in the form of Berserker Graves, but either way, that is our very last item that we're going to go over here, and that's Berserker Graves. If you're against that Riven matchup, that Aurelia, chances are you're going to run Bone Plating, which means you don't have Alacrity, which means that when they jump on you, you have to be on time on your barrel or you're dead every single time. And I can tell you guys this as a GP main, Challenger, 2 regions, multiple accounts, high elo playing versus the best players and, you know, the worst players. I can tell you guys this with confidence that every single one of these matchups is based upon standing your ground. If you can stand your ground and win the barrel, you win the matchup. If you don't, you're probably going to lose. So I love prioritizing Berserker Graves for the same reason that I mentioned prior with the attack speed, with timing the barrels. When the Aurelia jumps on the minion, I want to be able to auto-attack that barrel faster than she can auto-attack it. And when she jumps on me, right? When the Riven jumps on me, I want to be able to auto-attack that barrel, Q her, right? Or auto-attack the Riven for the passive, that Aurelia for the passive, Q the barrel, then auto her, and get that damage off right away. Because as many of you will know, especially in higher ranks, these 1v1s come so close. Most often when you're playing GP versus Riven, GP versus Aurelia, you're not winning by 500 health, 700 health. You're winning from anywhere to 10 health to 200 health. It's not a big margin. It's not a big margin of error that you have there. I think that's a proper way to use it. You cannot make mistakes. So that's why I like going Berserker Graves in matchups where I need to take Resolve secondary. And with that, I hope that puts your minds at ease. That's why Solarbacca builds what he builds. You have plated steel caps, right? You could go plated steel caps. You could go Lucidity as well. With that, with Trinity Force attack speed, you don't need Berserkers. And you don't need Swifties ever because you also have that movement speed from its passive and the Mythic passive as well. So you don't need movement speed. With Trinity Force, you have a more linear build path. You're going to go Trinity Force as well. Now, continuing this First Strike build, I almost always recommend going Collector third. So much lethality. It just got buffed. Just a solid item overall. There'll be these people who will tell you, Solarbacca, LDR, Solarbacca, when their armor is greater than 50. Ignore those idiots, man. They don't really know what they're talking about. I'll be honest with you. When it comes to Gangplank, specifically Gangplank, he already has 40% armor pen. And the way that armor pen works in League is multiplicative and not additive. What does that mean? Gangplank's barrels have 40% armor pen. If I buy LDR, I will not have 75% armor pen. That's not how it works. I will have more like 58, low 60s type of armor penetration overall. Collector also just works extremely well with Gangplank's barrels. Like I said, you have that armor pen already, and lethality is a great mid-game stat that Gangplank will have at its maximum value at 3 items, or, you know, it's reaching near its peak at 3 items. So I do think Collector is a great item on Gangplank, and don't be mind controlled into thinking otherwise. That being said, if you are against that Ornn top lane, right? The Cassante top lane, the Vi who's building like armor or health, a lot of health, or the Sejuani, right? You're against that Ornn top, Sejuani jungle, you're against like Nautilus support, Collector's probably not going to be your best option. You're playing front to back, you're probably going to need LDR. Now, there's also Mortal Reminder, but let me just say, don't build Mortal Reminder just because you see healing all the time. Because something that I mentioned on stream before is you don't need anti-healing if the enemy team is dead. So against that, you know, Olaf, right? If you're 5-0, don't get the Mortal Reminder, get the LDR instead. If you're even and you notice that they're a problem, right? He's a bit strong, then you get Mortal Reminder, but don't just mindlessly buy things because, healing. Even an Aatrox, if you're 8-0 against an Aatrox, don't get that Mortal Reminder. Get the Collector and get an LDR. What if the enemy team has no tank builders at all, and I'm 5-0, I'm 6-0, I got 3 items, I'm feeling good about myself, I'm strong, I'm ripped, these guys are low elo, bad, and they don't have any armor. What do I build? To that, I will say, welcome to the Church of Axiom Arc. This is our new replacement for Prowlers in terms of lethality and even damage, I would say. Now, yes, you don't have that dash, but look at the haste that you get. With the Navori nerfs, we are sitting at 35 haste if you're running Berserker Graves or Swifties and not running Transcendence. you're sitting at 55 haste. This will bring you to 60 haste and 70 haste respectively. I think I did the math wrong there. I don't care. Who cares? But Axiom Mark will give you more haste, a lot of AD, and a lot of lethality to going along with the collector that you already have. 36 lethality overall feels extremely good. So I would recommend Axiom Mark if you're against squishies. Next item that we have, if you are not building Axiom Mark, right? You got 4 items. You built that Mortal Reminder, you built that LDR, you're like, Solar, what do I build? Well, fear not, friend, because now with the new changes to Mythics, we can build Bloodthirster, get 100% crit, and still have boots, which is a very, very big deal. Being able to get that movement speed, like I said before, you get those auto attacks offers, you get those barrels offers, it feels so incredibly good. So BT is a great item on Gangplank. You use it exceptionally well, especially at level 15 and onwards. I would say do not buy BT if you are below level 15. Stick with Axiom Mark. Once you see that you're going to hit level 15 and onwards, level 16, that's when you get the Engorge passive to its maximum potential. That's when it starts to become, instead of like 1580 or 1080, you start to get 30 instead. It skyrockets. So that's when I say you would buy BT is around those levels. Next, I'm pretty sure that pretty much covers everything that I would build. Again, if you wanted an alternative, let's say that they do have a little bit of armor, but you do want, you don't want to build LDR or Mortal for whatever reason. I guess you just have something against that. Or if you don't want BT, you want Hydra instead, which again, I would recommend against. I would recommend you go BT, but I'm just offering you guys an alternative. Hydra is a great alternative for when you sell your boots. Because like I said, you'll be at 100% crit with boots. So if you want to sell your boots, you can get Axiom Mark or you can get Hydra. Another option is going Dead Man's Plate. I don't think Dead Man's Plate is a bad option at all. I personally don't build it, but it is a good item. That's because I like to ego a lot and I like to get as much AD as possible. And I know a lot of you might feel the same way, but a lot of you might be also feeling, what can I get? You know what I mean? What can I get to not feel like terrible? Another item is Maw. Maw is a great item. I would even put it here near BT because let's say if you want an 80% crit build that gives you a 1k magic shield, 1000 minimum magic damage blocked, Maw is your item. Great item on GB. You can keep up the lifeline passive by just auto attacking barrels, auto attacking minions, queuing your barrels. You can keep it up for pretty much forever until the next Maw cooldown comes up, or pretty damn close to it. So I think it's a very powerful item. It's very cheap. Do not overlook the item. 65 AD, 50 MR, 1k plus shield once you're at 3 items or more, 4 items or more. Great item. So in total, we have our core, and then we have situational. We have our 3 core and then situational. So that is it for the Essence Reaver build. Now, last item, obviously, if you're against a lot of shields, I guess you could build Serpents, but a lot of the times you don't actually need Serpents nowadays, and unless you're literally against Ivern and Lulu, or like Ivern, Karma, Lulu, you know what I mean? Like Karma, Lulu, like any of these, unless you're against 2 big shielders or more, don't build Serpents. Just stick with the other items. You get more lethality from these other items, you get more damage, and you can get crit chance, which will make your passive do minimum 780 damage come full build, 4 items even. That's how much damage your passive is going to do. It's really disgusting. So I would say only get Serpents if you're sure you absolutely need it. Next, for Trinity. Hey, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't build Trinity as much, but if I were to envision a Trinity build for you guys right here in this moment, it would either look like Trinity Collector or Trinity Hydra. I would say don't build, I don't even know if it's even worth building crit with Trinity. I mean, I guess you could go like Trinity Collector and then what, like LDR or like Shield Bow. I guess you could do like Trinity Collector Shield Bow or Trinity Collector LDR then Shield Bow. Yeah, you could probably do something like that, and then if you wanted more damage, I guess you could end up building a BT at some point. But a lot of times with this build, you're not really trying to build as much crit with Trinity. I mean, you're building Trinity just to be safe. So if you did want to build crit, I would say these are all viable alternatives. Obviously, we got a Mortal Reminder somewhere in there. I do not think Shiv is that good of an item, especially for mid-GP. I think it's more of a troll or for fun build. I've tried so hard to justify it, but I just don't think it's viable. But I will still give you guys a build regardless. Now, let me give you guys another alternative to Bruiser Grasp. If you guys did want to play GP with Trinity and Bruiser, I got you right here. This is a build that I would endorse 1000% in a real game. I would say Trinity, probably Hullbreaker, 3rd item. And then after that, you can build Anathema Chains or Frozen Heart. I think Frozen Heart can actually be a strong second item as well. So let me give you guys a rundown. First item, Trinity Force. Second item, if you're even or behind and they're heavy AD, Frozen Heart. If you're very far ahead, Hydra. Third item, Hullbreaker, always. Unless your team is heavy grouping, then you would go Sterax. Next up, Anathema Chains. Anathema Chains, because if you're against a heavy AD comp, let's say you went Trinity Frozen, right? Trinity Frozen, but they have 1 AP threat. 1 AP threat being Victor, Syndra, any of those other AP champions, Vex. You don't need to... This is such a disgusting item. Almost 700 health, 20 haste, free exhaust on them permanently. They stay slowed longer because they lose tenacity at full stacks. 2,500 gold is such a cheap item. It's cheaper than Frozen Heart, dude. It's such a free... It's a permanent exhaust on one person for the rest of the game. Very broken. I heavily recommend that you use it. Same thing. You could go plated steel caps for boots as well. I would say steel caps almost all the time since you get a bunch of CDR in this build. So you don't really need lucidity boots. As a last item, it's kind of hard to say, to be honest with you. There's like niche stuff like gargoyles, but I think you're just better off either going one of these two items. I would say either Demonic Embrace for your ult and for the orange healing, and since you already have a lot of HP already, you'll actually get like 100 AP off of this item, 110 AP even, and you'll have a burn on your ultimate and on your barrels and on your Q, or go Zhonya's because it's insane for being a frontliner as a bruiser, as a tank, and also it gives you the opportunity to be able to tank a lot of damage and also avoid a lot of damage that you can't normally block, right? Like you could be tanky, but if you get hooked by a Blitzcrank, damage is damage. You're dead. It's part of the reason why I don't like GA as an item, and a lot of people say, oh, what about GA? GA sucks. Because the damage that you take from GA, you're dead no matter what, and then when you spawn, you've either already won the fight or you've already lost. There's like 5% of the scenarios where your GA actually means something, whereas Zhonya's, you avoid all that damage completely. If you get hooked by a Blitz, you avoid all that damage completely instead of just dying there and looking like a buffoon. So I would say do not build GA, build Zhonya's instead, or build Demonic Embrace. And if you have an empty slot for boots, then obviously Demonic Embrace is really good. If you want to go AP for fun, this is the build to go. You're going to go Longsword start, you're going to go Longsword refillable, and then you're going to go to the DMAP page that I told you guys about earlier in the video. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to rush Shiv. You're going to go Sheen into Shiv, and then after Shiv, it only takes 2 amp tones to actually one-shot the back wave with Q. But if you want to make sure that you don't lose out on this threshold, get a Dark Seal, and it'll put you over the edge. Because if you look at Shiv, right, for the adaptive damage that you have from runes and from Absolute Focus, if you guys are following my setup, and Gathering Storm, this is 45 AD. So you just need more than 45 adaptive damage to overtake this. 55, actually, with Longsword, right? Actually, no, because Longsword builds into this. So it's 45. So 20, 20, you're even right now. Oh, well, you're still down 5. So this will put you over the edge, or completing this component into your Lich Bane, one of your Lich Bane components will also give you that. So Lich Bane, and then after we complete that Lich Bane, to be honest, I know this is the solid core for 2, but it's hard to find what to go as a third item. Here's what I think works the best. I think Navori works best, but I can see an argument for Night Harvester as well. If you're going like complete on hit, I would say Night Harvester. But if you guys want the maximum like damage and you want a good amount, I would say you go Navori. And then after Navori, you would probably go Rabadon's Death Cap. That way you can one-shot the melee minions at this point in time. And then after Rabadon's Death Cap, I would say that you can go 2 crit items at this point. I would say LDR. Because LDR's passive gives you bonus magic damage. It deals bonus damage for both physical and magic damage against champions with greater max health than you. So obviously with Hybrid GP, you're going to do more AD and more AP damage, which is just great overall. Another item that I haven't tried, but I think could be pretty good. This is Horizon Focus. It works on people that you slow at over 700 range, which is your ult, and even maybe a max range barrel. I'm not entirely sure on that though. I assume it would work with a max range barrel, but 100 AP, 15 haste. I think this is also a great item to try with Rabadons. Also, Stormraiser, right? Like if we're thinking of a final build, I would probably do Shiv, Lich, Navori, that's 3, Rabadon 4, and then probably LDR, Storm Razor last item, or Storm Razor LDR. And then the experimental items I would say are Horizon Focus. Testing items, I would say if you guys want to test this out and let me know in the comment section down below how it feels. I would say Night Harvester is one of them. Cosmic Insight could work, or Cosmic Drive, I mean, could work. I think that's it for the last items. Oh my gosh, the Golden Spatula. Rageblade? No. No Rageblade. I would say Morello's is also situational as well, since it does apply in your ult. I'll even put it here. But yeah, that is I'm pretty sure that's it for all the items I could think of. That is my final guide for the new patch. For those of you who are wondering, I will give you one final rundown. Core build, Essence Reaver, Navori, situational boots, Collector. Those are my those are my core 3. LDR, if they're tanky, Mortal Reminder if they have a lot of healing. If they don't have any tanks, next. Maw if they have a lot of MR. You can also go Maw as a 4th item if they have a lot of AP damage. These 3 are all situational as a 4th item. These 5 items are your situational 4th items. After that, you can build another one of those situational items. And then after that, that's your 5th item. You could sell boots and get either Ravenous Hydra, Deadman's, Serpents, or any other one of these situational items that you didn't build. But core, all situational, and then all situational. Grasp, Trinity, Collector, LDR, Mortal Reminder. You have Shield Bow as well, and you have BT. This is for a crit build. If you wanted to go Bruiser, Grasp, Trinity, Tabbies, Frozen Heart, or Hydra, depending on what you're against. If you're against a heavy AD comp and you're even or behind, Frozen Heart. If you're super ahead, Hydra. 3rd item, always Hullbreaker. 4th item, almost always Anathema Chains. 5th item, either Zonia's or Demonic Embrace, depending on the comp you're versus and your preference. I think this is preference. There's no true right answer, but I would probably go Zonia's, sell boots, Demonic. AP for fun, Longsword refillable, Sheen, into Static Shiv, into Double Amp Tone Dark Seal, into Lichbane Completion, into Navori, or Night Harvester if you want to have on-hit fun. But I think if you're playing to win, Navori, Rabadons, LDR, Storm Razor, and then situational Morello's obviously, and then final 4th, 6th item, Horizon Focus, and Cosmic Drive. So that is it for all of my items. If you guys do enjoy the video, and also Gale Force, I would stay away from, only because I do think that all the damage that you get is extremely insane from Navori, so I don't think Gale Force can even compare, because Gale Force, you also need crit to even get it to work, but even then, it's just not worth it. Navori is just better. But if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you want to see next, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.